hoping you guys can hear me now. So that'll be good. There we go. So I think we got some sound. Um, so you guys should be good that way. And then we will go forward. So hopefully that's good. For some reason, my big, nice microphone isn't working. So again, thank you. Thank you for being part of our group here with Partner College Credit Union for our webinar. Let me know if you have sound in there. And if you don't, please let me know. Should be good. So I think we do. So if you don't have sound, if you let me know about that. I'm checking my other monitor. I have a whole separate monitor I keep here, so just in case. So we'll get that squared away, and then we will get started. There you go. We got sound. That's good to know. Awesome, awesome. So again, thanks to Sharice. Thanks to Partner Colorado Credit Union. We're gonna get started here shortly. Let me get us squared away. I'll put our opening page up here. Let me share my screen. And then I have a few other things along the way for you guys. If you have questions, like I said, we'll answer a few at the end, go through that. So hopefully you're seeing my screen, which it looks like you are. I'm going to make my adorable face a little smaller because nobody wants to see that. You guys didn't pay money for that. So as we go through, hopefully the sound's okay. I think I have my big mic working, but not the camera for some odd reason. So we'll just go forward from there. So again, my name's Dave Hager. Do college financial planning. That's my specialty. That's my wheelhouse. Just a quick little bit about me. I'm actually was a high school teacher. With that, I taught for 27 years. I taught out at Bennett, if anybody knows where that is. I taught at Green Mountain as well, and also taught at Red Rocks Community College, Front Range Community College, and also for Fort Morgan Community College. My 27 years of teaching, I actually was an assistant counselor for the kids at Bennett because we only had a part-time counselor. I've always had juniors and seniors, so the college piece was always part of it. Then I had the opportunity about 12 years ago to be involved with Complete Spectrum. And with Complete Spectrum, it's been really nice that I've been able to bring all my talents together to help those families with college planning, with helping the kids, with helping, what's the best way to go through college. And of course, I am not alone in this, some of you have this going on right now with them, with yourselves, that I have a senior who has just decided to go to CU Boulder. So I've just gone through the whole thick of it with that. So I definitely have some inside experience with that as well. Plus, I have two secret weapons. Mike Malone, who is my mentor, is the director of financial aid and admissions at University of Alabama and was at Appalachian State. And then my dad, he was the provost of the University of Old Dominion University in Virginia. That's where I'm from originally, way back in the day. And with that, I get to pick their brains and hear all the new things that are coming up and all the things that are happening out there. In the financial aid world, in the world of admissions, and so forth. So, as we get started, again, thank you to the group with Partner College, Partner Colorado Credit Union. Excuse me, I'm already on to the college part. So, we're excited to be partnering with them. We actually have another webinar coming up and working closely with them and their team. So, I'm just excited to be part of that as we move forward with our group. Especially with Complete Spectrum and college success is kind of the college side of things. We actually try to really fit things in and be a needs-based type company. If you have particular needs, if you have a senior, if you want to look at scholarships, if you want to look at appeals, us doing the FAFSA form, that's great. If there's anything you want us to do also more general, or we have packages where we can look at all kinds of things, we run the gamut of helping people with the college piece and the financial planning piece, all the way from basically, I have some families that are just starting their families, like literally newborns, all the way up until seniors. One of the things they always talk about, that little saying, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago, when's the second best time right now to move forward? So even if you think you're late to the game, I'm guessing you're not as late as possible. We even had a few senior parents call me last month, and we were still able to help them as we went through our process. So we also do financial planning. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And one of our big things that we're going to help out and do some promotions with that is our big donation program. So in our donation program, if you were to set this up for your school or sporting team or church or youth group or any kind of activities at school, at some schools like Green Mountain where I used to work, I do about seven or different groups, from DECA to theater to soccer, cross country. I even do their financial aid night and things. So we actually donate money back to the community. Instead of us putting out mailers and buying dinners, we decided we'd rather help our community, just like we're doing with the credit union. And we'll actually donate $50 for each person that attends one of our webinars or our live events. We put together these cool flyers that you see here. We set it all up on Demio, do the registration page. Basically, you just need a group, send out a few things, and then it's good to go. We even have an email we put together. So if you're interested in that, there's a place at the end to set up a time to talk about that. We can definitely help your group. And we've been doing a little bit more live events. We're coming out of all the webinars, but I'll do it either way you want to do it. I'm totally open to that. You can just see some of the different schools that we've helped along the way. We've donated over $350,000 up and down the Front Range since we've been doing our donation program. So we're pretty excited about that. When we're talking about stuff, there's still some concerns out there about COVID, AP testing. That seems to have kind of fixed itself finally right here at the end. I have some teacher buddies that are AP teachers, and they finally got that. Campus tours finally are coming back together. I know there's half of the schools still have them. Some of them are just starting new tours. So that's definitely something to take advantage of. SAT and ACTs, make sure you get that scheduled if they're going to do, especially the ACT, because they have limited sizes to bring on. Your student might have to go someplace else. I'll tell you, my son Tyler had to go to Douglas, Wyoming to do the ACT test because that was the only place that had room. And then admissions deadlines, scholarship deadlines, all those things are changing. They're definitely going through different changes. They're delaying what they're doing, and then making sure that you filled out the FAFSA form correctly. A lot of people's incomes changed because of COVID. Maybe you lost your job, got downsized, things like that. There was some economic uncertainty, but we want to make sure we're helping with that. So, just some of the test dates, most of these actually have gone by except for the May 8th one, which there are some ways to actually slide in the door late. And then these will also be for the future as well as we go forward. And then the college websites have their own little virtual tours. You can go to uvisit.com, look at some of those as well. But again, as those schools open up, I encourage you to go see the campus. I cannot tell you the importance of going to the campus. Don't look at the buildings, don't look at all the landscaping, but look at the students, look at the classes that are offered, see if you can meet with the professor, go have lunch in the student area. You will really get a good feel for if your son or daughter should go there. They'll get a feel for that. It really works out well. So, and then as we come back to things that we do and how we help people, the big area is college planning, at least from my side. I also focus on protection of market losses for my clients, a lot of retirement planning as well. Retirement and college go together. There's only one little lump sum of funds, and that money gets pulled for, does it go to retirement? Does it go to college funding? All those things. We want to make sure that we have all of those funds and they're going to the right places. If you're a teacher, I am a retired teacher. I've gone through the entire para program. If you're a state employee, I know how the para program works. If you have other pension plans, I can help with that. That's one of my other specialties that I help a lot of clients with. And then we work in teams. So you have all these different teams. So it's not just Dave Hager. You'd have Mark Triplett helping with financial stuff, Chad Harrison, if we need the CPA, Darren and his entire team that does a lot of the college stuff. We have Katie Hill, who does financing. We have Vanessa, who does scholarship searches. Mike, who does other types of research for your kiddo. And then if you're doing sports, Wendy, she does that as well. So there's a whole group of people behind the scenes that are working for your son or daughter to help you out that way. And really, some of that comes down to cost. Community colleges, $5,000, CSU's about 29, CU's about 33. Want to go to a private league, that's 75,000. Want to go to CU or to DU, it's like 62,000. And then you can see the 4-year costs there, right? They're ranging 20 to up to 300,000. But my question to you is, how long does that average student take to get a bachelor's degree, right? We have a 4-year cost. So I'm going to do a little quiz out there to see how people are doing. And then we're going to do a little quiz. The question is, let me bring it up here. Where did I put it? What is the average time it takes for a student to graduate from college? And then we'll talk a little bit about that. So if you guys want to answer. Got a few people in here. All right, we're doing pretty good. So we got some of the people here. So we'll just go ahead and do that. So most people said 5 years. Some people said one. Nobody said six. So unfortunately, nobody is correct. It's about 5.8 years. That's a function of the student is not taking the classes that they need to take. They change their major, they change schools. About 20 to 40% of the kids, depending on the university, will actually leave the school and go someplace else. There's actually some data that wherever the kid originally started, about 40% of the time they never actually graduate from that school or don't graduate at all. So that's some of the things we like to kind of take care of early on, helping the student choose the right school for the right reason, choose the right major. And I can tell you just personally, with my son Tyler going to CU, it was the right fit for him. I'm a CSU grad, my wife's a CSU grad. That's one of those things that was kind of hard to take. But when we saw how all the different things helped him out, it was definitely the right thing. We avoided, paying attention to the pretty buildings and the landscaping and all that. You really want to focus on the people because those are the people that make the difference with that. There is a lot of pressure. Employers are requiring college degrees, master's degrees. You go be a PT, got to have your PhD in that. And then that just leads to more people enrolling in educational programs. The supply and demand piece. This is why you see ads on TV for Southern New Hampshire University, for Grand Canyon University, for all those different schools. You have a lot of online schools, the global campus for CSU, all those different things really plays a role in that piece. And then there's not as much state support and government support. We've definitely seen that, especially with the out of state kids this last year. And then, of course, rates are going up 6 to 7%. The schools are unsure, so they're trying to keep their rates and increase the rates higher. So these are things that we want to talk about because it could be more than what your mortgage is actually costing. So we don't want your kiddo to be. I have a few younger clients that I'm working with. When they walked in the door, they literally had 250, $300,000 worth of student loan debt combined as a couple. And we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure we take care of that in the best way possible. Even if you do have loans, making sure you're doing the right kind of loans and you're limiting that loan exposure for yourself, because we also have to worry about the retirement piece for the parents, because they're not doing grants or scholarships for the parents to retire, yet there is money for the students. So as we move on, some of the other concerns we have from our clients that we do these meetings really fall into three categories, right? The general questions, making mistakes, missing deadlines. You can try it yourself. The schools will love you for it. It's good to have somebody that does it all the time. This is a once, twice, three times in your lifetime that you'll do this. It takes a lot of work, where we're doing this consistently day after day after day. I just had a meeting with about 7 or 8 parents today, just working through that. Also hurting your son or daughter's chances of getting into school, and then also even worse, the financial aid piece. So we're going to talk about that in a second. The big thing is your kiddo taking the proper classes? Do they have the good GPA to get into that school? Do they need an SAT score? What is that SAT score? Should they do the ACT? My son did better on the ACT than he did on the SAT. How to prepare for that? We have our method test prep program you can use for that. What kind of grants and scholarships are out there? Are they needs based? Are they merit based? Are they activities based? All those types of things. And then also filling out those dreaded financial aid forms. Not only do you fill out the FAFSA form and the CSS profile form, which I respectfully like to call the financial rectal exam for the CSS profile, there's also individual forms for the university. Some of the institutions have their own forms. And then just looking at those things, I can tell you on the FAFSA form alone, the one client we had down at John F. Kennedy High School, we saved them about $12,000. My new record just happened at Mountain Range High School, where about 2, 3 weeks ago, the parents turned it in. I reviewed it. I looked at it. I found a $28,000 mistake. They were going to overpay for college by $28,000 every year if they would have turned in that form without us reviewing it first. So definitely helps to do those types of things. And then also with deadlines, every school has not only the admissions deadline, they have a FAFSA deadline. There's the college free college application day deadline. There's all these things. Plus, there's essays to write. Most schools have at least one essay. Some have two, and then we also have different deadlines for the groups. So we had a student got into Wyoming but forgot to apply to the nursing program. So that was one of my first questions out of my mouth when she walked into our office was, "Hey, I heard you had already applied to Wyoming. Did you apply to the nursing program?" And she had no idea. So we got that taken care of. Took a little bit of doing, but we did that. And we even had one student walked into the door and told us a horror story that if they would have applied 3 days earlier to the university, they would have gotten an $8,000 scholarship. So we're tracking all that. We know when all those deadlines are. We're going through that, kind of pushing you along, helping you along. I just had a client yesterday, met in office. He said that was like the best thing, that we were on top of things, kind of coaching everybody along as we did that. So those are some of the things we do. And then we also focus on how the heck are you going to pay for college? It is a huge expense. It's probably your second biggest thing besides your mortgage. It's more than a car. And then how are you supposed to come up with all that money? We don't want to tap into your retirement funds to do that. There's much better ways to do that. Are you going to self fund it? Guess what? That's on you. That means that that's money that you guys are going to put into it. Do you have to do loans? Again, that's on you. Scholarships, grants, work study, that's all free money. We don't want you to skip college altogether. We already know the importance of going to college and doing that. And we don't want you to go to a cheaper school. So we'll talk about that a little bit, how schools play this game of how do they get the kids enticed to come to school like that. I have a funny story for you that I'll share with you now. If you have a junior or senior, they're starting to get mail from all the schools. What I discovered in our house, the schools that Tyler was least interested in were the ones we kept getting the most mail from and so forth. So that's kind of a funny, kind of a counterintuitive type of thing that goes on. So when we're talking about, hey, where is all this funding coming from? There's a little portion from scholarships. These are merit-based scholarships, private scholarships. We do searches on this. We usually come up with 20, 25 different scholarships that are customized to your a son or daughter, but that only makes up a small portion. Then there's the self funded piece. This is what you're on the hook for. This is what's called your expected family contribution. We'll talk more about that. But then the big one is OPM. So anybody wants to shoot in the chat if they know what the OPM is, we'll see what that is. Maybe we'll find a way to get you a little prize if anybody knows what OPM means. So give it a try here. Nobody. So OPM means other people's money. These are grants, loans, federal and state money, money from the universities. Here's the best part of this. My question to you is, would you rather pay for your son or daughter to go to college or have someone else? Well, of course, you would rather have someone else and use your money for whatever you want, especially for retirement in the future. Well, that all starts with the FAFSA form. You have to fill out the FAFSA form. I don't care. You could be a multimillionaire. I don't care. Please, please, please. if you get one little technical thing from our talk, is fill out the FAFSA form. It opens up in August. For our team, we actually start collecting that data. Sorry, in October, we start collecting our data in August. And then we're all ready to go come October 1st. What we find out is a good majority of the seniors never fill out the FAFSA form. They've left a lot of money on the table. This could have been grants, this could have been subsidized loans, all those types of things. It depends on a lot of things: assets, family size, monies that are in different places, but definitely recommend filling it out because not only is all that money left there, but what we've also found is sometimes those are filled out with mistakes in them. So, like I said, we've caught those mistakes. We know what to look for. The questions are somewhat ambiguous. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but then we know how to properly answer those questions. Still legal, still ethical, but there are better ways to answer those questions, and there are some worse ways to answer those questions as we go through the FAFSA form. There's also what's called the CSS profile form. These are from the private colleges. Any of the big private schools you think about, they have the FAFSA form. You have to pay a fee. They might want more information. DU is a good example. They want to know some things maybe about life insurance. They might want to know about something else. There's a university in Illinois. Oh, I can't think of what it is. They want to know, what kind of cars do you guys drive as parents? So all kinds of stuff. It's very complex. There's a lot of detail. That's something we can take that off your plate. We can do that for you, get you all squared away with those types of things. So then there's also additional forms. If you own a business, if you have rental property, are you an S corp? Are you a C corp? Are you an LLC? Are you a sole proprietor? All those things come into play when we're looking at what kind of financial aid we're able to get you. Rental properties, especially, a lot of people, especially now, have one rental property, maybe two, making sure those are set up correctly, make sure those are documented correctly. And then I will tell you the biggest area of growth, at least for my personal business, has been with divorce and the separations and looking at things like that. I have a lot of divorced families, unfortunately, that I'm working with, but I'm happy to help. There's that silver lining where we can actually work a few more things to try to get more money for your kiddo for college. We have a family right now. We were able to save them $80,000 between the two girls that they have going to college right now versus if they would have left it the same. So, to quote one of my clients, you need to call Dave if you're divorced or recently divorced, or or even thinking about it, or something's up in play. I know that sounds silly, but it does make a huge difference to make sure you've done all that work correctly for college. The big question is, how the heck are you going to pay for it, right? You have the cost of attendance, you have the expected family contribution. That's the money that you're in charge of. That's what's going to come back on the FAFSA form, and that determines your family needs. So, cost of attendance, that's the cost of the school. Expected family contribution, you'll fill out the FAFSA form, or we'll fill it out for you. It'll generate what's called an EFC number. That'll be whatever you think the government thinks that you can afford for college. With that piece, I can tell you it's way higher than you're thinking it's going to be. When my sister filled it out, hers was about $25,000. And she's like, "Oh, that's really good." I said, "Well, hey, sis, that's per year." She's only a school teacher and her husband's only a school teacher, but they're still, their expected family contribution was still pretty high. So we want to figure out how can we get that need taken care of, because each school will put money towards that need, and we're going to talk about that generosity score here in a second. So when you're filling this out, right, you have all those things you have in your financial assets: cash, checking, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, vacation homes, rental properties, part of your business. All those things come together. We want to know that we're playing the game correctly, so we're meeting all the expectations of the FAFSA form, but we're actually answering those questions correctly. There's definitely some things to look at. Again, I said the questions are ambiguous, so you want to make sure that you answer them more correctly as you go through. And then we also want to make sure that we've got everything filled out correctly, because that asset piece really can come back to haunt you. If you have what we call non qualified money, CDs, checking and savings, that all gets reported on the FAFSA form. What portion of that is earmarked for college? If you have stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, I have a client who basically gets a big chunk of his compensation in stocks in the company. Maybe you get options. Maybe you own stocks in a small like TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab account. Those are things to look at. Are you counting all those correctly as you go through? Then you have the 529s plans. I've noticed a little increase in that, but not a whole bunch. There's some good things with the 529s, but there's a lot of things to be worried about. The FAFSA form, you report everybody's 529, not just the kiddos, everybody in your family. So if you have younger kids, that gets reported as well. That can increase your expected family contribution. What happens if you take losses? We had one client had his 529 with a different company for about 11 years and only made $89 on a starting amount of 10,000. So it's not very good because the markets went down. You can only use it for educational costs. And then one of the things we've discovered is you might have had that financial advisor show you, hey, how to set that up, how to get that stuff squared away. Uh, but have they showed you the proper way to take it out? There are better ways to take it out. And especially since COVID, there's actually some slight changes to that. So that's something we can give you an education on that piece. Take a look at what's the best way to attack and use that 529 money for your best ability. I have one for my son, but I also have what's called a private reserve account, which makes me look poor on paper. And with that private reserve account, it actually has a piece where it can't lose any money. And we're going to talk about that for a second. When you do this private reserve account, you don't report any of it to FAFSA. It may reduce your expected family contribution. A lot of times it does, at least for a couple years. And then you can use that money for whatever you want. By using that money for whatever you want, it's not just earmarked for college. Now, two kind of sides of the thing. What happens if you have a kiddo who doesn't go to college, or you have a kiddo who gets a full ride scholarship? We've run into both scenarios, and using the 529 money has been difficult to do that. So those are some things we're looking at. Also, we find ways that we can take that money out tax free. It makes you look poor on paper. It actually decreases your expected family contribution. So you get more needs-based help from the university. So there's a lots of advantages to this. What I have found is probably about 80 to maybe 85% of our clients that walk into our office have never heard of these private reserve accounts. The reason is it was really geared towards those families that were millionaires and above. Well, over the last 10 to 12 years, it's been opened up that almost every family, if it makes sense, we can get them started with a private reserve account as we do it. So just to give you an example, now this is long term. We can look at it short term. There's ways to do that, but just to kind of show you long term. So you can see the red line here. That's the S&P 500. That's how most 529 accounts. It's probably how your retirement accounts are tied similarly close to the S&P 500. So if you look back even at like 1998, you got a little increase. You got the 9/11 disaster, the growth, big mortgage meltdown, the big bull run. Then you got to the start here, 2018, 19, and then there's COVID that happened. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. If you end up in this scenario, even without COVID kind of destroying a lot of accounts, and finally they're kind of coming back, is you only average about 4% because you've gone into this hole, have to dig out of it, go into another hole, have to dig out of it, and so forth. What we do with the loss avoidance money is it grows in this loss avoidance account, the private reserve account. You start with that same amount of money. So instead of 100, maybe think of 10, right? So then it grows, you get the growth on the money, you don't participate in the down years, you get some of the growth during the up years, you don't participate in this big drop, and you get the growth through the bull run as it's going forward here, and you end up with more money because you haven't gone into these two holes and had to dig out. Now, you can see that like this blue stair step isn't quite as steep as this red line. That's because some of the companies are holding back money in the good years. So when the bad year comes around, you don't participate. So just like with COVID, we saw a lot of accounts fall off a cliff. Of course, that happened in March, right before seniors were going to school, right before people were ready to retire. So we were able to help some of those with some of these loss avoidance strategies in our private reserves because they work both for college planning as well as for retirement planning. What happened with people that had these loss avoidance accounts is they didn't lose any money. It was nice to get on the phone when all the crazy COVID stuff was happening and say, guess what? None of your money lost any along the way. And actually, in some cases, it was already making money as it moved forward. So these are things to talk about. If you're interested in that, we can talk about it from the standpoint of college planning. We can talk about it from the standpoint of financial planning. There's a variety of ways to take a look at this and see if it really works because there's about 3 or 4 different ways to use these private reserve accounts and just they vary. So again, if you're interested, you can let us know about that. So as we jump into loans, there's really 4 major types of loans. The first two, you have the subsidized loans that are usually the Stafford loans from the government. Subsidized means they're covering the interest while your kiddo's in school. Unsubsidized means that they're not. The interest rate is still pretty low, so still worth doing and taking advantage of. Also, I'm a big believer in your son or daughter having skin in the game towards the college piece because now they're financially responsible on top of academically responsible for that. There are Parent Plus loans. They're usually not that good. One of the things that kind of drives me crazy is I have been saving from a lot of my clients bring me what's called their reward letter. And in that award letter, it almost kind of describes like, hey, here's the only place you can go get your Parent Plus loan. Well, I'm here to tell you there's a bunch of different places you can go out there to get your Parent Plus loan. We'll get that taken care of for you. We use regional banks, national banks. We have some local banks that do that. And then there's even some people that are doing home equity lines of credit, maybe a hybrid loan of some kind. Maybe they refinanced their house and took a cash out refi. It just really depends. Even in the business loans, there's ways to do that as well. So, one of the things we stress with our clients is there's going to be some of you that need to take out a loan no matter what. There's just not enough money to pay for college. But some people have to take out loans, and then some people want to take out loans. So, using those loans, that's where some of this comes into play, where we get to use the credit union for some of that stuff to help with those loans as we set it up because they have really great rates and people want to take loans. I have a multimillionaire client. He wanted to take a loan for his son to go to college because he had some of that other money earmarked for opportunities, which actually did bear out to happen. So he was excited that he's making more money than he's paying on his loans, but he did take out his loan and do it that way. And again, that's where the credit union comes into play. That's where we get to get some help that way from them. And we, really easy, streamlined process to go forward with some of those loans. Now, the fun part is really grants and scholarships. There's 2 types. There's needs-based, which actually is the predominant type, and then there's merit-based. A lot of people think the merit-based are the big ones, but it's really the needs-based one. We're going to talk about that here in a second, but let's focus on the merit-based ones. I bet you can guess some of those, right? Academic scholarships for sure. These are for kids that have good SAT scores, good GPAs, especially in different areas. Maybe they have college credit, AP classes, all those things. There's definitely scholarships. There's the President's Scholarship that people get, or maybe the the Provost Scholarship, a couple $1,000s from the university to basically entice that kid to go to school there. Then there's, of course, sports scholarships, the big one being football. I have a couple students that are doing that. But the one thing I would say about the sports scholarships at the Division 1 level, they are very limited. I have coached girls soccer for about 25 years off and on and can count on my hands how many girls have gotten a decent scholarship to go play at a Division 1 school. A lot of girls go play Division 2, Division 3, or at a smaller Division 1 school as a walk-on or something, but it is really hard to do that. And some of those sports are hard. Basketball only has 5 people on the field versus football. You got a lot more as you go forward. I've also seen a lot of scholarships because I play the drums and I've been involved in the percussion world a lot. Things like theater, things like the orchestra, band, and so forth. There's scholarships for that that are called talent scholarships. And then there's other things like at CSU, you have FFA has a scholarship program. There's scholarships for different things like environmental studies, could be in nursing, University of Wyoming, Northern Colorado, Mesa College. DECA, of course, has their programs that way. Engineering, especially women in engineering, like at CU and CSU. And then there's even crazy scholarships like the Asparagus Scholarship, where it's a farm to table idea. But these are all open. My son found one that if you were redheaded, you could apply for the scholarship for that to get money if you were redhead going to college. So there's left-handed scholarships. There's all kinds of ethnic-based scholarships out there to go after and stuff. And we can actually generate a list of scholarships customized for your son or daughter. So by doing that, you're not having to just do a crazy Google search and apply. There's a good 20 or 25. And we've had a lot of good success with our customized scholarship search of people getting scholarships, ranging anywhere from 500 up to $20,000. So it just really depends. But those merit scholarships are out there and ready to go. The other thing we find out from the universities is there are some myths out there. The one thing I can tell you right here, you don't have to pay retail to go to college. It's not Neiman Marcus, not whatever the price tag says. You can appeal, you can negotiate. They're going to come back with an offer. You also have your AP classes and your dual credit classes, where the kids are getting college credit and high school credit. Even if your kid's not a great student, again, all those different areas, even SATs, or if they do what's called a passion project or a senior capstone project, those things can help. I highly recommend that for kids that are trying to get into a more prestigious school, to make sure you have some kind of capstone project or passion project, senior project, whatever you want to call it. We can help you with that and kind of give you some ideas, or doing some kind of internship, which has been really hard with COVID, but that's starting to open up. And also understanding there's really kind of two parts of the fence. You have your admissions officers who are helping you get into the university, that's their job. But then the financial aid officer over here, his or her job is basically to give you as little money as possible and still get you to come to school there. So there's some things that we can attack that, approach that. There's even what's called magic money that can show up at the end of going, oh, here's an extra 1,000. Knew you're interested in coming, but we can kind of pit some of the schools against one another. And then sometimes we have some success with that. It's not an easy process. There's a lot of complexities. It's an ongoing thing. It basically sucks up a good portion of the senior as they're prepping and even as they're starting as a junior. And then we definitely want you to fill out the FAFSA form, the CSS profile, especially in all regards. But even if you think you might make too much money, because we had a student got a work study program, which led to an internship, which led to a job, which led to a scholarship at the university. And it all started because he got a work study program. He would have never been offered that if he wouldn't have filled out the FAFSA form ahead of time. So definitely we want you to do that. So, when we're looking at all the different groups, the financial families that we help, it runs the gamut. We might have some families, we have some groups down at John F. Kennedy High School that they need all kinds of help, financial, getting their kids in college, SAT prep, everything. We have some families, they need some partial need. Maybe they've started this project, they're doing seminars like this. And then some people think they make too much money. Well, what I can tell you is we're able to look at your financial situation, help with tax inefficiencies, help returns on investment, look at things in your portfolio, and actually end up probably making you and or saving you enough money that it is like getting a grant for college as we go forward. It's super important to take a look at that to make your financial situation as efficient as possible, especially now with all the craziness with COVID. The other part of that we look at is we're also looking at what we're doing for the parent side of it. So there's a whole bunch of that where when we're looking at your expected family contribution, is there a way we can get that number down? A lot of people, when they come to our office, we're able to save them a little bit of money. One of our examples, our family here, they started with an EFC of 26,000, ended up being about 19, saved them 7,200 a year. That's more than $30,000 over the course of those 4 years in school. Now, I don't know about you, but I would much rather spend that $29,000 on my kids and my family than give it to a university. It's for my kid to go to school. So there are definitely ways that we can help that way. The other part of that is on the flip side, there's what's called the generosity score. Every university has their own generosity score as they go forward. What happens is they're figuring out how much need do you have and how what percentage of that we're going to give you and what percentage of that money is going to come in the form of gift aid. So we're going to talk about that here a little bit. I have a little example. So two schools. This student applied to both schools. Colorado Mesa was kind of their safety net school. Vanderbilt was their reach school. You can see Colorado Mesa about $24,000. Expected family contribution for the family 10,878. So their need was 13,000. Colorado Mesa meets 57% of that need, which in the form of gift aid, they give a little bit of that. They give 2,900 in gift aid. The rest is self-help, which really is loans that you're doing. And then they don't even meet about 5,900 of that. So when it's all said and done, to go to Colorado Mesa, it's going to cost this young lady about $21,000 to go to school there. Now, Vanderbilt, on the other hand, a whopping $73,000. Expected family contribution, that hasn't changed. That's not going to change depending on the school you go to, but there's a bigger need of 62,270. Well, Vanderbilt meets all of that need and all of that in the form of gift aid. So guess what? It's only 10,800 to go to school at Vanderbilt versus going to Colorado Mesa, which is 21,000. Again, it kind of shows every school plays their own little game of what are they going to give, what how much does it cost to get in there, what's the generosity score, are they giving merit based, are they giving more needs based money? Every school is different, and we have all that information about each university we've gathered. We know what their generosity scores are. We've calculated. We actually had a professor from University of Florida figure this out for us, and wrote a program for us, so we're able to calculate this, and it's always updated with all the new information. So that's something we definitely can do for you and take a look at those schools for you. That's actually part of our free discovery meeting that we have at the beginning we'll talk about. The other thing is sometimes these awards are misawarded, they're underawarded. Sometimes we want to make sure you're competitive. You've applied to other schools and making sure you have those schools as competition, because we can actually go in and take a look at some of these and actually do what's called an appeal. So with that appeal, let me go forward here. That appeal, basically, you're going to get the ability to leverage some of your financial aid against some of the schools. So I'm going to show you an example of that. So give me a second. Let me bring that up here. Let me share that with you guys. Let me download it, and then I'm going to bring it over to my screen and make it bigger. So we actually just had a new one happen this week where a student got an additional amount of money from Ohio University, about $12,000. So here's our example. So this student applied to California Institute of Technology. They got their award letter. It's the official letter that comes from the university after admissions. You can see they offered $10,248 in financial aid. That was in February, right? Well, we appealed this process and came back, and because of the appeal, they gave an additional 16,136, which is $64,000 over the course of 4 years. Basically, we used one of the other schools against California Institute of Technology and basically said, well, hey, we're thinking about going here. Can you help out a little bit more with some additional money? And they were able to do that. The other example is down here. This is from Northwestern University. You can see the Northwestern scholarship was originally $24,000. This family had some difficulties. The mom had lost her job. We reached out to the university, and it turned out that they ended up giving her an additional $8,000 to come to school there. Some of that was based on that additional need. And then we also felt they kind of under awarded her at first But again, that's about $33,000 more over the course of those 4 years. Again, I go back to I'd much rather have the university pay that than myself. The other thing you see is the needs based increases are much bigger than some of the merit based pieces as we go through. So we'll continue on talking about that a little bit. Um, but that's something if you want to talk more about, we can. What we really want to focus on is what we can do for you. The first thing is, most importantly, choosing the right school, choosing the right degree for the right reasons for your kiddo. That's utmost important. You know, myself personally, we visited 4 different universities, and it wasn't until our final visit back a second time to see you at Boulder that was really where we thought Tyler, and Tyler definitely thought that was where he wanted to go. The other part is your kid, do they need to do the SAT, ACT? I know they just did it in school this last week for the juniors. Do you need to take it again? And then what kind of ways are you preparing for that? We do the method test prep program where it's all online. The kids love it. You can be super structured. You can deep dive into some of your areas of weakness and do that. And then coming up with the right kind of college savings plan. What kind of loans are out there? What kind of school based uh, things are there? What do I do with my self help money? My expected family contribution? How do we get it down? So we're looking at all those different plans. And then if we need to appeal, how do we go about doing that? Is it worth doing it? What are the best ways to appeal some of those? We actually end up writing a letter, and then you send it from yourself or from your son or daughter that really kind of states this is why we think we deserve more money to go to school here. And we can talk more about that, but we've had some good luck with that. Not everybody, but we have had some good luck with that recently. We will fill out the FAFSA form for you. We will do the CSS profile for you. If you have private institutions, we'll fill out those. We'll review your applications when you put those in, especially to the elite schools. We will read your essays. We're actually starting a new piece where we'll even read scholarship essays. So I will tell you, that was what my client yesterday said. He said that was the biggest deal, is that the essays that were reviewed and really helped get money for his daughter to go to the University of Arizona. And then making sure we're not missing deadlines, making sure we've got the FAFSA deadline met, the essay deadlines, financial aid, early decision, early action. Those are different. Looking at those things as we go forward. And then all these other planning services. So I'm going to actually share this with you so you guys can see this, and I'm going to make it a little bigger. Let me grab that. I'm going to drag that over here and expand on that. So these are all the different services that we do. The first group is for the student services. We have our own college counselors. Our college counselors are there to help the student initially get started, to coach them along. I will tell you, again, I'll use my son Tyler. He was kind of nebulous in engineering, chemistry, whatever. And when his counselor Joanna talked to him several times, they got it down where he really wanted to do chemistry. That's what he's doing at CU. So, you know, those types of things. So if you have a kiddo who's not quite sure, our counselors work wonders. And, you know, I'm just dad, so what do I know? But it's really the counselors that are able to help. We do a personality profile. We found this to be very effective in helping our students figure out what are areas of strengths, places they might want to work, skills they might have, because it's not just your passion, it's what's your skills that you bring to the table, and then also what value do those skills have. So those are important. We do an interview with our college counselors if you're thinking about playing sports. Wendy handles a lot of the NCAA athletes as our counselor. We do the career cruiser piece, the personality profile. It really helps get some of that squared away. And then we're giving feedback to the parents about what we do. The online SAT prep with method test prep, highly recommend that. We had one student went from an 1130 to a 1320 and ended up getting an extra $8,000 scholarship from the University of Northern Colorado. So those types of things really do help. Definitely helping with reviewing the college admissions application. recommendations and doing all that as we go through. And then also the big one I would say is the essay review. Almost every school now, because they've kind of put the SAT test a little on the back burner. They want to see how the kids write. So they're looking at those essay reviews, going through all of that. One of the first things we end up doing is a generosity score search on schools that your son or daughter is interested in. We can fill out the FAFSA form for you. We'll submit it for you. Same thing with the CSS profile form, which is for the private schools. We'll fill it out for you. We'll submit it for you. We'll send you the report that we get. And then when you start to get award letters, we'll start to look at those, evaluate them, and then negotiate and look at those financial aid packages that you've received. Because for some schools, they're better than others. They might look really good, but actually in the net case, we do a big spreadsheet analysis of that, which really helps the families look at from a financial standpoint, where's the best place their kiddo can go to school. And then I've talked about the scholarship search. That's customized to your student depending on what their interests are, their skills are, what they're thinking about studying. We will actually do and calculate a good estimate of what your expected family contribution is, look at an affordability assessment of the different universities that you're interested in going to from a financial standpoint, make sure you're on track both for college and for retirement. We also have a loan manual that has a lot of information about the ways to take out loan, the best types of loans for your situation. And that's something I personally coach people on all the time. What's the best college savings program? Is it a private reserve account with a loss avoidance strategy? All those different things. Plus, we're doing what's called comprehensive financial planning. Well, what does that really mean? So let's talk about that a little bit. What that means is we're going through a process where we're first sitting down to do a discovery. This is when you're able to bring all your questions with you. We'll answer them for you. This is part of our give back for the credit union. For a webinar, you get an hour's worth of our time, usually ends up being a little bit more, to fire away with any kind of questions that you have for me as we take a look at that. We will do what's called a My Tuition Score report. That's free. That's a $79 value. And then we'll even do some financial reviews if you want us to do that on your accounts, like your retirement accounts or your 529 accounts, whatever you have. We can take a look at that, look at those strategies, see how that fit in. But that's something as a give back as well to our community. So one of the things we do is we use a high powered program to analyze all your information, your income, your assets, where you're at in your portfolio. You can see all the little tabs across the top. We're looking at those types of things. We're looking at your expenses. Where does college fit in here with the debts and obligations piece? What is that going to cost? Do you have everything accounted for? Where are you on track for retirement? We do what's called a red line solve, that we look at, hey, yeah, you've paid for college, but we want to make sure you have money well into your retirement. And then we're doing all of that. We use that program, even though it's called Retirement Analyzer, to collect all our college data, because it does a really effective job of us plugging that information in and then creating what's called your My Tuition Score. So your My Tuition Score, like I said, that's a $79 value. You can go out there, type in My Tuition Score, pay $79, do it yourself. But we're going to do this for you. It's really kind of a college readiness from the financial standpoint. We're going to also figure out your expected family contribution. We're going to look at different costs for universities. So here you can see, like CSU, their cost, what's your expected family contribution, what's your estimated need going to be, what's the gift date going to be, what are you on the hook for, what is it going to cost you in the end. We'll figure that out for the schools that you want to look at for your son or daughter. Again, that's totally free. That's something we're doing as our give back to help out with the credit union and educating all of the credit union members along the way. We'll even look at, if in your major, what areas are of importance there are, and what are the generosity scores for the different universities your son or daughter wants to look at. And of course, just like I talked about, the last thing is our donation program. This is the same webinar, pretty much the same thing you saw. We do as a donation program to help out schools, churches, sports group, activities groups. Again, we've done everybody from DECA to Future Farmers of America to all kinds of sports teams, even recreational sports teams. We've done some of the soccer clubs, softball teams, cheerleading groups, you name it, church groups. We love to help out those kiddos as we do it. One of the things that we do is with that first meeting is you can pick a time that really works good for you. At the end of this presentation, it's going to set up a time that you can fill out the form. You can actually just answer the question. I would prefer if everybody answers it either yes or no. So if it's no and you don't want us to reach out to you, we won't. What we'll find out is a fair amount of people will want us to reach out to take advantage of the My Tuition Score, to take advantage of the 1 hour free consultation and all that stuff. You can pick your own time if you want to on the little calendar link that's right here. There's also, I've got a question for you to throw up there if you're interested in that. Again, it's no obligation to you. It's totally free. We're not going to sell you anything. We don't even get to that point until usually the end of the second meeting into the third meeting. But if you wouldn't mind answering either way, I've tracked that. I have access to the emails that you signed up with that I can do that. And we'll reach out to you. Either our assistant will reach out to you at this point and kind of go forward from there as we do it. But I do appreciate you guys being on. Sharice, thank you very much for putting this together for us. I'll leave you with a couple things. When you're doing this consultation piece, what I see happen is, first off, please come with your questions. I had a lady came with 17 questions on her legal pad and we just knocked them all out while she was sitting there. A lot of times people are like, thank you very much, Dave. We appreciate your hour. Thank you for the My Tuition Score. We'd love to use your services, but right now we're going to try to do it yourself. I do tell you, I have an engineer guy who started to do it himself. He gave up and he called me about 2 months later, and I've helped both of his girls now. Some people want us to handle parts of it. If they have seniors, that's an option to look at that, those types of things. And then sometimes people want us to do everything. They're like time versus money, professional people doing it, just like you have a professional person fix your car, or a plumber, or a lawyer, or a CPA. This is what we do. We're college planning. We plan all that stuff. So this is your chance to take advantage of that. I see some people answer the questions. Please, thank you for attending. Thank you again to the credit union for putting all this together and putting out all the links to the flyers. I'll leave you with two quotes here. The first one is, a fool with a plan is better than a genius with none. Take advantage of all of the professional help you can get, especially in the college planning area. And then my favorite one actually comes from my son. He was sitting on the couch after he met with his college counselor, and he's like, Dad, I feel like I'm not doing it myself. If that's not powerful enough to kind of help you out in that decision, because those kids need our help, especially in the crazy COVID situation. And this is a chance where we can reach out, help our community, and so forth. There is going to be a little worksheet that'll pop up here at the end, and then you can fill that out. And then the people that did answer the question on the interested part about no obligation, I'll reach out to you. Again, thank you very much. Thanks to the credit union, and I appreciate that. And you guys have a nice evening. Thank you.